It's 3:07 in the morning. I'm lying in bed, eyes wide open, staring at a ceiling that's vibrating with bass from a television I don't own. Somewhere above me, a woman is screaming. Not in danger, not in pain. She's screaming because she loves this movie, and she wants the whole building to know it. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night in 11 days. So I got up, walked to the kitchen, and made a decision that would end this war in exactly 5 seconds. If you've ever lived below, beside, or anywhere near someone who thought their comfort mattered more than your basic human need for sleep, you are going to feel this one in your bones. This is a story about patience running out, about being told to your face that your peace doesn't matter, and about one very smart, very tired person turning a $3,000 flat-screen TV into their own worst enemy. Stick around, because the payoff is chef's kiss. And if petty, well-earned justice is your thing, hit that like button and subscribe, because we've got a lot more of these coming. The setup. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand just how good I had it before it all went sideways. I was renting the ground floor unit in a split-level house owned by a close friend of mine. It was a solid deal. Reasonable rent, someone I trusted as a landlord, and a quiet little life built around a 9-to-5 job I actually liked. I was, and still am, what you'd call a light sleeper. The kind of person who wakes up if a car door shuts too loud 2 streets over. My sleep was sacred. It was the one thing standing between me being a functional human being at work and me being a zombie who snaps at customers over nothing. Upstairs lived 2 guys who ran a party lighting company, the kind of business that rigs up sound systems and light shows for weddings, clubs, events, which meant their work hours were basically the opposite of mine. They'd roll in around 3 a.m., wired from a long night of setting up and tearing down equipment, and wind down the only way people like that know how, by turning on the TV. Now, here's the thing, for a long time this was manageable. Annoying? Sure. Nobody enjoys being woken up by a muffled television through the floorboards at 3 in the morning. But it was occasional, and it wasn't malicious. I had a trick. Turn on my bedroom fan, let the white noise swallow the TV static, and drift back off. Not ideal, but livable. I want you to really sit with that word, livable, because it's about to become the most distant memory of my life. The turning point arrives, and she has a very large TV. One of the guys started dating someone, and eventually that someone moved in. I don't know her whole life story, and honestly I don't need to, because what she did in those first few weeks told me everything. This woman had zero regard, and I mean zero, for the fact that human beings lived beneath her feet, trying to sleep, trying to function, trying to hold down real jobs that started before noon. She didn't just turn the TV on. She turned it up. All the way. Every single night. For hours. Picture it. This was the early 2000s, when flat-screen TVs were still a luxury item, still status symbols, still the kind of purchase people bragged about. They had a big one. An expensive one. The kind that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And she used it like a weapon. I remember lying in bed those first few nights, my fan cranked to its highest setting, and it wasn't enough anymore. The bass from action movies would rattle through the ceiling like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I'd stare at the dark, doing that awful mental math we all do at 3 a.m. If I fall asleep right now, I get 4 hours. If I fall asleep in 10 minutes, I get 3 hours and 50. If I fall asleep in 20 minutes, and watching the numbers shrink like a countdown to a bad day, I started dragging through work, snapping at people I liked, forgetting things, running on the kind of exhaustion that sits behind your eyes like sand. So I did what any reasonable person does first. I asked nicely. The confrontation. I walked upstairs one afternoon, calm, polite, hopeful, and knocked on their door. When she answered, I explained the situation as gently as I could. I told her I worked mornings. I told her the noise was coming straight through the floor. I asked simply if they could turn it down after a certain hour. Her response is one of those lines that just lives in your memory rent-free forever. This is when we get home from work, and we'll do what we want.
No apology. No compromise.
Not even fake sympathy. Just a flat, entitled dismissal like my sleep, my job, my life was an inconvenience to her viewing schedule. I remember standing there in the hallway afterward, jaw tight, replaying that sentence. We'll do what we want, as if the walls between our lives were soundproof to consequence. as if my exhaustion was simply a fee I had to pay for the privilege of living underneath her. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I went back downstairs and I did what I thought was the responsible next step. I told my friend, the landlord, what was happening. He talked to them. He explained the situation, probably more diplomatically than I would have. And it changed nothing. The TV kept blasting. The girlfriend kept screaming along to movies at volumes that belonged in an actual theater. Night after night, the same violation repeated. Like she decided my complaint didn't even deserve the dignity of a response. That's when something in me shifted. Because here's the thing about being disrespected quietly, night after night with no accountability, it doesn't just make you tired. It makes you calculating. The idea. I want to walk you through the exact moment this went from frustrated tenant to engineer of justice. Because it's honestly one of my favorite kinds of memory. The kind where your brain, starved of sleep, suddenly hands you a gift. I was standing in my kitchen one evening, microwaving dinner, when I decided to vacuum the living room rug at the same time. Multitasking, nothing more. And then, snap, the power cut out. Breaker tripped. Apparently my microwave and vacuum together pulled more amps than the circuit could handle. Most people would have just muttered a curse and gone to reset it. I stood there in the dark for a second, and a slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. What if we're on the same circuit? It was a gamble. Split-level houses like this one often shared electrical panels between units. It wasn't guaranteed, but it wasn't a long shot either. And if I was right, I had just found the single most elegant, untraceable, deniable solution to my problem.
No confrontation.
No shouting match. No landlord mediation that would go nowhere. Just consequences. Immediate, physical, undeniable consequences. The kind that don't care about attitude or excuses. I decided to wait for the perfect moment to test my theory. The execution came a few nights later.
3 Uhr nachts.
Right on schedule. I heard the TV kick on upstairs. And this time it wasn't just loud. It was aggressive. I recognized the tinny orchestral swell of Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory thundering through my ceiling. And then, over the top of it, her voice, gleeful and completely oblivious. I love this movie. And she cranked the volume even louder. Like she was daring the house to stop her. I sat up in bed. My heart was doing something strange. Half exhaustion, half electric anticipation. This was it. This was my shot. I walked into the kitchen in the dark, my bare feet cold against the floor, and I stood in front of the microwave like a general in front of a control panel. I set the timer. I flipped on the vacuum cleaner beside it. I pressed start. 5 seconds. Click. Silence. Not the muffled kind. Not the TV turned down a little kind. Total, absolute, blessed silence. No bass. No screaming enthusiasm for chocolate rivers. Just my own heartbeat and the quiet hum of a house finally at peace. I stood there in the dark, grinning like an idiot, savoring it. I heard shuffling upstairs. Confused voices. Footsteps heading toward the basement. Someone going to reset the breaker, completely unaware that the outage wasn't a coincidence. The power clicked back on. And, unbelievably, so did the TV. Same volume, same movie, like nothing had happened. They genuinely thought it was just bad luck. I gave it about a minute. Let them settle back in. Let her get good and comfortable. Let that Oompa Loompa song start playing again at ear-splitting volume. Then I hit the microwave and the vacuum a second time. Poof. Silence again. And this time I let myself laugh, quiet and satisfied. Alone in my dark kitchen at 3 a.m., feeling more awake and alive than I had in weeks. They reset the breaker a second time. But the TV stayed off. No more triumphant sing-alongs to Gene Wilder. No more bass rattling my ceiling. Just stillness. The kind of stillness I hadn't felt in that apartment in months. I climbed back into bed and slept the single best sleep of my entire tenancy there. Deep, dreamless, uninterrupted. The retaliation came the next day. Not against me, but through my friend. They complained to him, indignant, that the power kept cutting out and that it could have damaged their very expensive TV. There was real concern in that complaint. Real fear that their prized possession, the same TV they'd used to torment me for weeks, might actually suffer consequences. I want you to sit with the irony of that for a second. The device they weaponized against my sleep was now the thing they were scared to lose. Funny how quickly people's priorities shift when their comfort is suddenly on the line. When my friend relayed the complaint to me, I didn't apologize. I didn't even pretend to be sorry. I simply told him the truth. If they keep the volume at a respectful level, I won't have to do anything about it. But if it happens again, I won't hesitate. No threats, no drama, just a simple ironclad promise. The same energy she'd given me in that hallway, except this time backed up by results. It only took a couple more reminders, a couple more perfectly timed poofs of silence, before they finally got the message. The volume came down. The 3 a.m. movie marathons stopped rattling my ceiling. And for the rest of my time in that apartment, my nights belonged to me again. Here's what I love about this story. I never raised my voice. I never broke a single rule, damaged a single thing, or said a single unkind word. I just used the resources I already had to make my invisible problem impossible for them to ignore. Sometimes the most satisfying justice isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, precise, and undeniable. You don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes all you need is a microwave, a vacuum cleaner, and someone stubborn enough to lose sleep over the alternative. If this story had you grinning by the end, smash that like button right now. You know exactly which moment did it for you. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What's the most brilliant, quietly savage revenge you've ever pulled off or witnessed? Drop it below because I guarantee someone else needs the inspiration tonight. And if you want more stories like this, real people, real injustices, real payback, subscribe because we've got so many more coming your way.